Did pretty well against the Rays. Although, last night, not so good. 20-6.
Ooh.
I guess the Guardians were just watching last night. That was the final here at home. That was the first of three. The middle game is tonight. 6:10 is your first pitch here on MMS, so we will dip out a couple of minutes early. 6:10, Twins, Guardians on your FM home for, of course, Cleveland Guardians baseball. And I don't think that I've got a CLE clothing company code for September. We burned out the one in August. I have heard no update on if there's a code for September. So we'll be in limbo on that. For those of you probably should have gotten that to me last week for the big Labor Day shopping weekend, but that didn't happen. So that must mean that they're doing very, very well over there, which I know they are. But yeah, Guardians, Twins tonight, 6:10 on the Buzzard. So Mary spent the weekend in a cabin in Hocking Hills with her extended family.
Yes.
And I'm sure it was all sweetness and light.
Oh, God.
I'm sure
Just
that
the
nobody... family is a weird thing. For any person, family is a weird thing. And so my initial response is, I don't know why you guys keep doing this to yourself, but it is your family. And you're not going to isolate yourself from these people just because there's a chance that you will start an argument.
It's not me.
You said, by your own admission, you said that usually it's something that you start.
No,
because somebody else will say something and you can't let it go.
I'm the
About
only
what?
one who says anything about anything. So this
That's
weekend...
the same thing as starting an argument.
Okay, fine, whatever.
I mean, in your situation, you know that. You know when you pipe up, it's going to turn into something.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not telling you to stay quiet. I love getting in all people's mess, but so it was you and not all of your extended family, but enough so that there'd be a little friction.
One of my sister, one of my brothers, and so there's music coming from somewhere.
Yeah, Alan's playing it to set the mood for the story.
There's
been on the show
music
for
coming
5
from
years.
somewhere.
Did you see me freak out? I pulled my headphones off. I was looking at my phone and something. Anyway.
Where's all that music
What
I'm
is this
hearing?
background music?
I don't,
Sometimes you can't even hear us talk, and they're just telling us about products. What's going on?
So, anyway.
Yes.
We went down for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday was just me, Brian, and Blake at the cabin, and it was great. We had a great time Friday. Had some dinner, just kind of drove down after she got out of school. No issues Friday. Saturday is when my whole family showed up. So my sister, her 2 kids, my mom, my brother, his 2 kids, his wife, right? So we're all down there, and this was, I should say, the most difficult weekend we've had with Brian's daughter since I've lived there a year and a half. And it was just like top to bottom, she wanted to fight us about everything. Like, it didn't matter what it was. Every single thing that was suggested was a fight with this kid.
But it's not like, I mean, she's been around your family before, so it's not that.
No, yeah, it's not that. I think, kids just have off weekends,
Yeah,
right?
sure. I get it.
And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of personalities.
Just back to school.
Just back to school.
Yeah.
No one is on their regular sleeping schedule, eating schedule. It's hot. We're hiking. We're going to lake. Like, there's a lot going on. I totally get that.
It's a hotbed of possible explosions.
Right.
For children and adults alike.
100%. So Blake is 7.
Bill, you hear that music? Where's that coming from?
What the hell is that?
So Blake is 7. My
See if I
niece
can do something
Riley
about that.
is 11, and they are the exact same person, which means that when those two get together, it is either going to be cherries and rainbows and everybody's happy and they're best friends, or they are yelling at each other 100% of the time. So this weekend, we happen to get a 100% of the time yelling at each other weekend.
Gotcha.
So come Saturday was fights. It was just fights, just aggravation and fights between the kids all day Saturday. Sunday comes, we're getting ready to go on a hike, and again, Blake's fighting with everybody, and we're like causing problems, and I'm trying to like do what Brian and I discussed as far as like parenting techniques and how to handle her when she has, an attitude or lies or whatever, right? So the problem with my family is that everyone has my brothers and sisters, everyone has very strong opinions that they are not afraid to voice, and
On how to parent.
on anything, but in this case specifically on how to parent. So my brother, sister, and mom are all trying to intervene every time something is happening between me, Brian, and Blake.
Ugh.
So they're all throwing in different.
Poundcake.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
It's literally, that's the most annoying thing when you're out in public trying to parent your kid, and that's like someone in the grocery line like, oh, it's just a kid. Why are you gonna, like, don't tell me how to parent my kid.
Yeah, stay out
Parent
of
your
it.
own damn kid.
So that was basically what
Kid
happened.
are you parenting?
He's just
Yeah,
commenting.
what are you talking about?
Would you get mad? Were you like, let my mom yell at me?
I would. I'd be like, I don't know you, sir. Like, this is between A,
He's
B, and C
imagining being
conversation.
in the self-checkout with Gordy and Lupa and how that would...
Well, I am a new uncle, so I can imagine me being out in public, learning stuff for the first time, and I got instructions from his father, which is my brother, and if I'm babysitting, don't tell me what to do. Like, you don't know what this kid is about. I know what this kid is about.
My brother told me that I could punch him in the face, ma'am, all right? Just leave me alone.
I have a rule. If
Thank
I
you.
can't whip them, I can't watch
watch 'em.
them.
And his dad understands that. It's my...
Don't you listen, ma'am, to the show?
The show that I don't listen to.
Anyway,
And I'm
back
on-
to Mary.
It's okay. So Saturday, with all the fighting, all three, brother, sister, mom, are butting in, and they're trying to talk to me. You should do this. Hey, stop doing that. Don't be so hard on this. Let this go. Do that. So and it's mostly directed at me, but like there was one big fight. Blake wanted to ride in the car with my sister and my nieces, but there was no room in the car, right? I said, hey, you can't go in that car. There's no room. And she was like, but I want to start fighting with me. I'm like, dude, and it's hard sometimes, I feel like, to explain a very logical situation to a child where I'm like, there is no room. Look in the car. There's nowhere for you to sit, but she wasn't having any of it.
Doesn't have a
So-
fully formed brain.
I get that.
A 7-year-old brain.
So me and her get into my car, and I looked at her and I was like, dude, I get it. It's hot. There's a lot going on, but you have to listen to me. I was like, you can't keep fighting with me and Dad on everything we talked to you about this weekend. And she was sitting there pouting. She's mad. She's not in the car with her cousins. And then I looked at her. I said, are you ready to listen to me the rest of this weekend? And she looked right in my face and said, no. And I was like, oh, I was like, I put the car in park, shut off. I said, get your ass out of the car right now. We're not going to the lake. And she blew up. She was really upset, obviously. But I was like, you're not going to tell me, no, I'm not going to listen to you straight to my face. You're not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So I took her inside.
Say, well, will you try to listen to me?
No, I didn't
Really,
have the
no,
patience at
no
this
middle
point.
ground there? Okay.
Well, I took her inside because Brian was still inside. I took her inside. I told Brian what happened. I said, you need to figure this out. I'm going to go take a half hour, go get ice in the cooler at Kroger, and I'll be back in 30 minutes when I cool down, remove myself from the situation, and you guys can kind of figure out whatever's going on here. You know, and that's something that Brian and I have discussed where we say, hey, if one of us is starting to get overwhelmed,
Yep.
you take a break, you go for a walk, you go on a drive, you do something to remove, even just go out of the room. And then I didn't know this, but apparently after I left, my mom went back into the cabin and was like trying to talk to Brian and Blake. Well, Brian is like, I'm with my daughter doing what Mary and I discussed. Like, you know what I mean? So this was happening pretty much all day
Why is
Saturday.
your mom trying to be parent of the year?
They all are.
That's
My
right.
mom, my sister, my brother, everybody was trying to like fix what we were doing, and it was
it work?
incredibly frustrating. Yeah, it actually was perfect. That's the end of the story.
Well, there was new music, so I figured.
The new music came from my brain.
It's the
actually.
calming music. That's
When you
right.
do that, you undermine like the parental figure. Like,
And that's what I tried to tell them. So by the time
And if
Sunday
anybody
came
knows
around,
about undermining a parental figure, it's Poundcake.
because I had a bunch
Been
of
doing
people
it his
intervene.
whole life. Did it to his mom. Did it to every
Because everyone would
authority
jump in.
figure
Step
ever.
of the way.
That's why I love him.
Whenever I wanted to be mean, they would give me treats, and then I never learned.
so
Like a puppy.
by the time Sunday came around, and like a very, very minor fight between Blake and I about doing her hair. That was it. My sister said something. My brother said something, and I freaking snapped. We sent the kids downstairs, and I sat my family down for an intervention where I was like, listen, I understand. I have only been in a parental role for a year and a half, and only on weekends at that. I get it. I'm new, okay? You guys have to butt out. Like, you have to. You have to stop.
You got to let me learn.
Essentially, and that's what I was saying. And they're all like, oh, but we love you, and you don't listen, and you're so bullheaded, and you're this, and you're that. We're just trying to help.
We love you.
You don't.
We love you, but you're so stubborn.
Exactly what it is.
But Mary, don't you understand how stupid you are?
That's exactly
Don't you
what it felt
understand that
like.
you're an idiot? You're not doing anything right.
Why don't
We're
you
just trying to
listen
tell
to
you-
what we say?
They're all our well-behaved kids.
Yeah.
So I'm like crying and I'm really upset because it's already a frustrating weekend. So now to have to deal with all of you too, I was like, we have a very overbearing family. And I was trying to be as calm as I could. And I
Do
said,
your siblings have really amazingly well-behaved children?
my brother does, but because he is
Really strict, right? So
like,
he's like spare the rod, spoil the child.
100%.
Gotcha.
They do not fuss, whine, talk back. Like they don't.
They're terrified.
They essentially.
Yeah, right. That's how we.
And
grew
that
up.
will never manifest in a way when
That
they get
requires
older.
therapy.
Yeah.
So I'm having this discussion. Brian's sitting with, so in the kids are all downstairs. There was like a air hockey table and video games. So they're all downstairs entertaining themselves. And the parent, me and my brother, sister, my mom, Brian, we're all sitting upstairs. And I'm explaining to them, like, you guys have to back off. I understand it's coming from a place of love. I take it very personally. It feels condescending. It feels like you don't believe any of the things that we talk about are important. And Brian was sitting there quiet the whole time. And I felt attacked. Again, I took it very personally, but they're all like, you don't know what you're doing. We've all been parents longer than you have. We're just trying to help. And I had to explain, I get it, but I don't need your help. I need Brian's help.
Right.
So when Brian and I...
He's the parent.
Right. I say when he and I discuss something and that's what we put into place, we don't need input from any of you. And I didn't feel bad that I did this, but I looked at Brian because it had been like a half hour of me talking to him and he didn't say a word. And I looked at him and I was like, am I alone here? Like, are you going to back me up at any point? Are
He's
you
like,
going to say
"Co-sign."
anything? Like,
Yeah, that's right.
So, but
Let her go. She's on a roll.
Yeah.
so he came in and he put
He's
up.
like, I was waiting for my intro, my music.
Yeah, where's my intro music? But he put up a very firm boundary where he was like, Mary, you do take things extremely personally. He is like, I don't think that they're saying that you're a bad parent. And he's like, and you and I have discussed how you're just new to this. It's just a different role for you. So he's like, I don't
And then
think
you go, oh, you're siding with them?
this is what it is.
Do
No.
you guys understand that I'm the Mary Santora?
But then he said straight up, like he was like, with that being said, I would appreciate if you guys butted out. Like, we don't need your help as much as you guys are trying to offer it. Like, and he even told my mom, he even brought it up. He was like yesterday when Blake and I were discussing what we were discussing and you came in, he's like, I didn't need that from you. I didn't need you to come in here and try to fix a situation between my daughter and I. And he was very calm.
Ooh, that's so hot.
Dude, it was so hot. It
stood
was
up to
so
your
hot. Like,
Yeah, it sounds
I'm
way
looking at
hotter
him.
than what I did. It's
I was
just so
like-
hot. Ooh,
I'm like, take me out of here, Brian. Carry me away.
Seriously, I
Take
looked
me
at him, and,
down.
but because he was doing it in a very kind and loving way, where he was like, "I appreciate you. I know we're gonna be, in this family unit for a long time, so I know you guys care, but." Stay out of it, essentially. And I was like,
Bitch.
look at you setting boundaries, So we had that whole long discussion, and they were like, it was amazing to me how receptive they were. My sister even was, both my sister
When
and
she
my
screamed at
brother.
him
I didn't
for 30
scream.
It
I
was
I
Brian,
cried at them.
30 minutes.
I cried at them.
Once I cried at them for 30 minutes, they really seemed to get on board.
Like we were, and both my brother and my sister were like, we get it. And I can respect that. And I said, if you want to help, do it in a different way. Instead of saying, hey, you shouldn't talk to her that way. Or, hey, you need to do this. Say, hey, you know what worked when Caitlin was 7? This, and that. Or sometimes when Riley does this, I handle it this way. I said, if you can approach it in a way that isn't so demanding and, again, condescending is probably on me for feeling that way, but it is very like, you shouldn't do this. You should do that. It felt like being told what to do. And I'm like, well, you don't even know, And then at one point, my mom, during this discussion, my mom goes, I feel like you're too hard on Blake and she needs rescuing from you. And Brian stepped in and he was like, rescuing? Like, what?
Rescuing.
Are you and Brian was like, well, Carol, let me ask you this. He was like, do you feel like when I'm having a discussion or punishing or reprimanding Blake that she needs rescuing from me? And she was like, no, not at all. You're her father. And he goes, right. So if I trust Mary and her and I are on the same page, and I trust her enough to be alone with Blake, why don't you? And my mom kind of just sat there and I was like, look at my man. I'm about to propose.
But that's
what
also,
are you
like-
doing? Like,
That probably comes from a place where your mom knew that your dad had a new lady in his life and didn't like the idea of her ever being your mom.
yeah, I mean,
So there's probably some part that's tied into that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was more just I am and Brian and I have even talked
And you're a
about
bad
this.
mom. Yeah,
I'm a bad mom. No, I'm just more stern. I am much more stern than he is. He's going to give a ton of patience and a ton of tries and a lot of love and a lot of grace. And sometimes I'm like, this is too much. Like, you got to stop.
Well,
like,
also-
just knock it
also-
off right now. Go to your room. I'm not talking
The
to you anymore.
step-parent
you know?
kind of overcompensates in a way that's like, you're not getting one over on me, kid.
Well, yeah, that too.
So, yeah, you kind of lean lean
know?
into it.
So it was, that was the big,
Reach some détente with the family.
I mean,
essentially, yeah.
I've been a step parent for almost 20 years. I figured it out in the first couple weeks, so I don't get why it's taking me so long.
The first couple weeks. Well, and that's what I tried to explain.
And there was 3 of them, Mary, so I don't know what your problem
You only
is.
have one
Yeah.
half the time. Well, and I was trying to explain.
I get texts like I got a text yesterday. I'm like, oh my god.
I was trying to explain it to my family where I was like, we are in completely different situations. I said, you guys have been in a parental role 100% of the time from the moment you or your spouse got pregnant. You have had all of the say. I was like, I've been dropped into a situation that I chose.
With the inherited mental illness that we're all used to.
Right. Yeah. You guys get to coach the mental illness from the beginning.
Yeah, we know.
No, but like I came into a situation when she was 4, you know, where behaviors and parenting styles were already established, and I didn't have any of my own yet. You know, I said, so you, my brother, sister, and mom, I said, you guys really don't know anything about this situation. You can give generic tips on how you parented your kids, but again, to try to apply a blanket statement like, you can't do this.
Yeah, every
you
kid's
shouldn't
different.
do that.
Every
you
kid's
know?
different. Yep.
But yeah, so Brian was like, he was a friggin' saint this weekend, man. He handled
Should canonize this guy.
He handled all of Blake's, like, again, we had a difficult weekend with her. He handled it without and I probably didn't blow up or freak out because my family was there, but and then he like stood up to my family and set boundaries, and I was like, my
I
goodness.
grew up in such a conflict-free environment. That whole story just makes me pucker.
Yeah.
That weekend would be.
Oh my god.
Conflict free. How did you have a conflict free?
Because we were terrified of my parents,
Oh,
and my
see.
parents weren't yellers. So
But they
by
were just
extension,
scary.
like
Yeah.
I'm not. No, well, not even that. They just this is what it is, and like it or lump it. But I mean, we grew up in a very Catholic house.
We would scream over each other.
Oh,
We're squaring
same.
up.
Hell, no. But again, you had a single mom. She was hanging on by her fingernails. Like
We're
that's a
throwing
whole
stuff.
whole
Yeah.
different thing, right?
Cussing at each other.
But as a result, like by extension, we don't have a loud house now,
You never threatened your.
and so it's like, man, no, because
Wait,
I got
wait, you never threatened your what?
he was going to say mom.
No,
Kids?
no, not mom.
Siblings.
The siblings, because I
threaten them with what?
Anything.
I threatened my
No.
brother.
If you
He's
tell on
threatened
me,
me.
I'll break your leg.
He's like,
No.
wait, he's like, you know, you talking all this stuff now that mom's awake. Wait till she go to sleep, because she got to sleep. She got to
Yeah.
work.
No.
And she's gonna be gone at work. He's like, I'm gonna get
No, because
you.
my mom
And I'm
didn't
like,
work. My dad worked.
Yeah, no.
So my mom was home. Like, what were we gonna? You know, my
Yeah.
brother and I, my middle brother and I are Irish twins. We're 15 months apart, so everybody thought we were twins anyway. And no, it just wasn't like
We
that.
wouldn't.
So now, like in our house where it's just me and Gwen and Nora, like if things get loud, Nora kind of gets like wide-eyed.
Yeah.
Like just
What is
generically
happening?
loud.
Yeah.
Right. It's just not like that. So it's like listening to a story like that, which by the way, is not that's a completely
Not uncommon at all.
a common story of interactions between people, but it just makes me pucker
Let's go along
when
to
I
get
hear
along.
it.
Well, and Brian had,
No, I
Brian-
think that's not even go along to get along. I think that's a conversation that had to be had.
It had to be had.
Yeah.
Because it's not the first time I felt like this. Like anytime we get into a situation and I told them, I was like, I get it that I'm new. I totally understand that. And I get it that I'm having a hard time. And especially if she's acting up because I am more stern than Brian is. There are times where I'm just like, and that's because of the way that I was raised. We got the crap beat out of us. And I'm not saying that that's okay, but there are times
But
in
you are
my
saying
brain.
you wish you could hit the kid.
No,
more.
not at all. But I'm
Okay.
saying there's times in my brain where Brian is giving her 5, 6, 7 opportunities and like speaking with her and talking to her. And I'm like, just tell her she doesn't make the rules and put her in her room.
Trying to
Like,
reason with her. Kind
Yeah, where I'm like, at this point, we've been having this talk for 30 minutes. Go put her in a room and make her learn a lesson. Take
So
away her
you
tablet.
Are taking the evil stepmother route.
No, I'm saying, and that's why Brian and I discuss things and parenting and all that beforehand. So when other people butt in, which they always do, And I don't know if that's a poor family thing where everyone thinks they have to help raise each other.
It takes a village, yeah.
Or whatever it is.
I don't know that that's a class thing.
Well,
though.
Brian's
I think
family
there's
didn't do that. They aren't
Yeah,
like
but
that.
it sounds like his family is a completely different just dynamic in general.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like what you described, very quiet, very chill, very like.
I just remember when my ex-wife and I had our older kids, when my mom would give me a hard time for not spanking them. And I was like, well, it worked out great for me, Mom. So
Right.
guess
Yeah.
what? I'm not going to do that with them.
Well, that's the other thing is that I'm like,
Let's see how it turns out.
Now I'm
Of course,
punching
they're
him in the
awesome.
chest.
it's really hard not to like hurl insults back and forth because like when my brother and sister are giving me like advice and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I've watched you do this, that, or the other. I look at my mom and I'm like, bro, you have 5 storage units. Like, how are you going to sit here and tell me that I shouldn't talk to her in a stern voice?
Hey,
You know, like.
take her to a storage unit, straighten her out. Don't do it here in front of everybody.
So there was,
So
you know.
so the trip out of Hocking Hills when everybody goes their separate ways, was everybody happy and hugging and all
Yes,
that?
absolutely. Like
All
it
right,
wasn't,
good.
but it was a buildup
There's
of
no,
problems.
of course. It had to be.
That conversation
like a
needed
therapy
to be
weekend,
had.
yeah.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
I even wrote that in like the little guest book. I was like, should we just write that it was an awesome weekend? My mom goes, no, be honest. I was like, great cabin to have family therapy in.
Oh, you just made a mess.
But yeah, when I sent Brian a text this morning, and I was like, just watching you this weekend was like so hot.
She got
And I
all
love
wet
you.
sitting there in front of her
Oh my
family.
You need
God.
to,
Look
you need to
at
borrow my
you.
pool table?
I think I do. My goodness.
It's having it refelted.
But it was like a real gay text too. I was like, my love for you grew so much deeper this weekend.
Shut up. That's so much worse than anything I
Is that
said.
the worst? Is that the worst thing?
She said, I wish you would have taken me out in
My
the woods
love
behind
for
a tree
you.
or something.
You're the perfect partner, and I can't wait to further this relationship.
I wouldn't even write that.
You ferret.
Yeah,
know. You
have to
you
say-
ruined it. He did all this hot stuff, and then you get all, ugh.
You have to say that to his face. You don't write it down.
I was just excited.
You fairy.
Yeah,
I got
we're
to
good.
take a
We're
break.
all
All
good.
right, good. Let me take a break here. You want to send a text 35192. Don't text me how your love for me has grown exponentially in this segment, and we'll be back.
The Alan Cox Show on 100.7